Hello and welcome back to this channel. I am so excited you're here and I can't even hide it because I can hear it in my voice right now. I'm recovering from the flu and this is going to be the longest that I've talked in days, honestly. So just bear with me with the voice. If you're new here, welcome, and if you're old here, welcome back. My name's Emily and I like to talk about books. Today we're gonna have a little chat about a book that I recently read. I actually listened to it. I listened to the audio of Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin, and I overall really enjoyed the book. It was like a 3.75, 4-ish stars for me, and I just want to talk about it. We're going to start with just a brief overview and kind of like the purpose and the themes, and then we'll chat a little bit about some of the things that I really liked and that I thought the book did really well. And we will also chat, of course, about the things that I disliked or thought that the book didn't do as well, and some things that I'm just kind of neutral about but really curious to hear other people's opinions of. So without further ado, let's get into it. This novel follows two protagonists, Sadie and Sam, who meet as kids in the hospital and bond over video games. And later they run into each other while they're in college and they end up making a game together. And we get to see their friendship through the years and kind of a series of events that are a result of their childhood together and then them making the game together. The book spans like 30 years of friendship and all of the intricacies that go into creativity and friendship and love. I'm gonna read you this little blurb from Harvard Review that I feel like does a really good job of explaining this book, because literary fiction can kind of be hard to explain just based on plot. So Harvard Review says, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin is part coming of age story, part love letter to the video game industry, and part exploration of the enduring power of friendship. Taking its title from the famous soliloquy from Macbeth, Zevin's novel has it that one is but a poor player in the game of life. So this book explores friendship, communication, trauma, creativity, and provokes a lot of questions, small and large, which you know I really love in a book. If you know me, I love when there could be discussion questions about a book. I love when it's like a good book club book and you're like, we could talk about this, like we could sit down over a coffee and have a chat. I am gonna keep this for the most part spoiler free. I won't spoil anything that I wouldn't have wanted spoiled for me going into the book, so trust me, I got you. I hate spoilers. So let's start out with some of the things that I really liked about Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, some things that I thought Gabrielle Zevin did a great job with. In no particular order, first, I really liked the exploration of generational context, and I feel like all of the issues and moods and themes that she talked about in the book were put into context specifically at the end of the generation that Sam and Sadie were a part of, and everything felt very purposeful, the way that they handled themselves, the way that they communicated, the way that the gaming industry felt like a product of the time that they were in, which I really enjoyed and didn't fully appreciate until the end of the book, but I did appreciate it looking back and kind of having an explanation for some of the things that maybe I personally wouldn't have done or I feel like wouldn't happen now. We got that context and that was really important and really well done. I really liked the analysis of Sadie and Sam's relationship and the questions that their relationship provoked, such as the age-old question of platonic friendship. Can a guy and girl really be friends without the guy being in love with the girl? The importance of romantic love versus platonic friendship, which is something that is near and dear to my heart as a single girl with great friends. The question of the nice guy who, like, we all know isn't the nice guy. I really liked the examination of violence in video games and the question that it provoked of, does video game violence translate into violence in real life? And kind of just like exploring all of the intricacy of that question. I loved the discussion of alternate realities and the question of, is my life a product of my circumstance, or is there an aspect of destiny? Would things have turned out in a similar way had my circumstances been different? Would I have ended up in the job that I ended up in if I went to a different school? Personal example. But I like that the book kind of examines this question and provokes that thought, because that is super interesting. In a way, it feels like we're all product of our circumstances, but that's so subjective and we'll never truly know, because obviously we're only going to be living in the reality that we're living in, and all the alternate realities aren't going to be explored. So I like the idea of exploring them and playing with that concept. I love when books do that. I feel like Recursion by Blake Crouch, Dark Matter by Blake Crouch did that really well too. If you're interested in a more sci-fi version of that concept, definitely something cool to check out. I just love pondering what would have happened if I was born into a different set of circumstances. Would I have become the same person that I became? Like, was I meant to be who I am, or is who I am largely, like, how much of that is based on just like random circumstance, you know? Super interesting to think about. And the book didn't like focus on that specifically, but there definitely was an aspect of it towards the end that I really enjoyed. I really appreciated the writing style of this book, and that is something that is super important to me, is having a really good writing style. I loved the chapter, the NPC, that gave us a peek into second person POV, which I just think is so special when an author does, since we so commonly see things from first or third person point of view, that like, I did this or Sadie did this, and we got the second person in this book a little bit, where the author was saying, you wake up and you see this, and that is not done often. So when it's done well, I feel like it's extremely impactful and was just really enjoyable for me as a reader personally. And then the chapter after the NPC was like probably my favorite chapter of the book. The book just kind of felt like a literary fiction for the majority of it, and then once we hit that chapter, it kind of turned into something else. And stylistically, Gabrielle Zevin made some bold choices, and I feel like they really paid off and made the book something very unique and beautiful. I loved that she referenced outside media, specifically Macbeth, and then of course the video games like the Oregon Trail. Having the Oregon Trail at the beginning of the book instantly drew me in and gave me like those cozy vibes. I played that game in like elementary school on the old computers at my elementary school. Seeing Sam and Sadie play this game just instantly connected me to the book, so I really liked that. And then finally, we can't talk about this book without talking about the exploration of gaming. You know, you could call me a gamer. I used to play The Legend of Zelda Windwaker, and you know, I played that. Did I finish it? No. Did I hand the remote to my dad to fight the final boss every level? Yes, but I gamed and I liked the vibe, and that's what's important. And I just feel like we don't see video games in books as often as we see movies or books in books, if that makes sense. Like, it's so much more common for a main character, at least in the books that I've read, to be someone that reads or be someone that really loves to watch movies. But I personally don't think that I've read a book about characters that play or create video games before. And that was really enjoyable and creative in and of itself. But I also liked the fact that video games did a great job highlighting the importance of play and the importance of creativity and the importance of story and the importance of escapism amidst tragedy. I feel like our society, not to make it about like our society, but like our society is so chronically online that we are constantly in the middle of the 24-hour news cycle and constantly seeing bad news and tragedy occur at such a level that our brains are literally not made to comprehend and deal with. And I just feel like it's so incredibly important to turn off your brain, whether that's with video games or reading or movies or journaling or time off your phone or painting or literally like anything, time in nature. Like, it's just so imperative to our well-being to not be constantly glued to a screen and to take intentional time away from that. And not to be preachy and talk about our society, but I love that video games highlighted the importance of a cozy game amidst a tragedy, which in Tomorrow, Tomorrow, and Tomorrow, they played a cozy game after 9/11, and they mentioned that, which was like of the time that the book was written. And then we saw it again in COVID era with games like Animal Crossing and other like cozy games when the Nintendo Switch got really popular. I feel like it's just something that needs to be more of a thing. Like there needs to be more outlets for folks to escape from their everyday life, and games provide a really great opportunity to do that, especially if you're not like a big reader. I also feel like this book was great because it did justice for all different types of games, and I feel like often the most like the popular games are shooters. So we'll see like games like Grand Theft Auto and Call of Duty. Is Grand Theft Auto a shooter? No, but I don't know actually. I only played Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, and I think I played it a total of like 5 times, but my ex-boyfriend made my car pink, so that was nice. Side rail. But the point is that there are so many different types of video games, from like cozy Animal Crossing to role-playing games, and I feel like if you don't play video games, you might not necessarily know that. It's important to build some positive connotations because games can actually be like such a good healing experience, and I feel like they get a bad rep from games like the aforementioned more violent games. It was also just really cool, obviously, to see how much creativity and time and work and thought gets put into every little detail of games. It gave me a new appreciation for people that design something so intricate as a video game. Now that I've sung the praises of Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, let's talk about some things that I personally didn't like, some things that I thought the book could have done better, and then a thing that I'm not sure how I feel about. First and foremost, the elephant in the room for me. My biggest pet peeve in a book is when the main driver of the plot is the players, sorry, not the players, is when the characters the main thing that drives the plot along is the character's failure to communicate. It was a huge reason that I didn't like Normal People, if you've read that. I understand that it's very realistic and for some people very relatable, but for me personally, it literally makes me want to pull my eyelashes out one by one because it frustrates me so freaking much. The fact that Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow received such a high rating from me despite this points to all of the things that this book did a wonderful job with. But I gotta say that if you don't like a lack of communication in a book, this book has a lot of lack of communication. It was really funny though when Sadie dated someone in a band and the band was called Failure to Communicate. That made me literally laugh out loud. Another thing that I didn't personally like in the book was kind of like a lack of exploration of consent. One of Sadie's relationships is extremely problematic, and I don't know if this was meant to show kind of the different viewpoints of that generation and show things that were like more acceptable then that aren't acceptable now. But I feel like if that was the point, I would have wanted it to be driven home a little bit harder. I just didn't personally like how this person was still praised throughout the book for being great at other things that he did. I don't know, it just, something about that situation did not sit right with me at all. And that's just, I think, another probably like personal pet peeve. Would love to know if you feel similarly and what y'all felt about that in this book, because that kind of really just like, for some reason, didn't sit right with me. I feel like there were also a few instances of telling rather than showing, especially towards the beginning of the book, which is something that I feel like I've recently started to notice a lot, and I didn't love it. Again, the rest of the book made up for it for me, but there was just a little bit of that, and that kind of takes me out of the book a little bit. The thing that I'm not sure about is how some sensitive issues were handled and used to drive the plot along. I'm gonna put trigger warnings on the screen, and then if you don't want to hear about these sensitive topics, and I'm not gonna talk about them in depth, but if you don't wanna hear, just skip ahead to the next chapter. But I was just kind of like, was this respectful of these issues? Were these done just for shock value? Like, there was a lot of trauma in this book. So this book talked about cultural appropriation, violence, consent, disabilities, trauma, and depression. And I feel like, and I talked to someone that read this book and really didn't like one of the more like shocking, violent things that happened in this book. And I could easily see why that this would not be liked and the way that they did it wouldn't be liked. Conversely, I can see why people would like how these things were done and how like maybe people would have liked the representation of depression that was seen in the book. I can just see it going like either way, and I don't have a super strong opinion on any of them except the consent. But I was just reading it and I was like, is this a good representation or is this a bad representation? I don't know. But those were just a few sensitive issues. It just felt like there was a lot of them. And I think for me, or maybe like my recommendation to Gabrielle Zevin would be to maybe just pick one of these sensitive topics and explore it more deeply and do it more justice instead of putting so many of them in. But then again, I understand that being a victim of a lot of trauma was part of Sam's narrative, and I don't know, I don't have a strong opinion about it, but I am curious to hear people's thoughts. I've seen a little bit of both online. I haven't done a ton of digging on Reddit or Goodreads or anything, but those are just some things that stood out to me that I felt like, I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. So I'm just putting that out there that I don't know how I feel about that. And I'm really curious to how other people feel about that. So if you've read this, let me know what you think, because I value y'all's opinions so much. That's why I'm filming this video. In conclusion to my essay, just kidding, I feel like Gabrielle Zevin achieved what she set out to do with this book, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was a great recommendation. I'm kind of bad at taking recommendations, and I was thinking about why I'm bad at taking recommendations, and I feel like the recommendations that I like are when people are like, hey, you should read this book, you would like it. Love that. People are like, you have to drop everything you're doing and read this right now. I'm like, you are putting so much pressure on me. I already have my next 10 books picked out, and what if I'm not in the mood to read something of that genre, you know? That's not the conclusion to my video, but I'll just end it with, in conclusion, I feel like Gabrielle Zevin did what she set out to do and achieved the intended purpose of this book, or achieved what I assume to be the intended purpose of this book. I'm looking forward to hearing everyone's thoughts about Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, and I am gonna recommend this book to people that love literary fiction, especially literary fiction that spans generations. Doubling down on that rec if you love games, although I don't think that it's necessary to have played any games to understand this book. I don't think that the gaming references are done in such a way that you wouldn't enjoy the book if you have never touched a video game in your life. But if you love literary fiction and games, like, this is your book. The only thing that I would, caution is if you don't like characters that don't communicate, these characters might drive you up a wall. But there's enough substance to the book in other areas that oh my gosh, that it didn't ruin it for me personally. That is all. Jesus Christ. That's all from me. I appreciate you so freaking much for watching these videos. I am so incredibly grateful. I hit 280 subscribers. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of people. If there was a room of 280 people, I mean, I would do that. I would talk in front of you. But I feel so grateful for everyone that's subscribed and everyone that's commented on my videos. I've just received some well thought out comments, and for people to take the time to do that means so much to me. It makes me feel so good, and just know that you're appreciated. I think I've responded to every single comment, and I'm going to continue to do so, but I'm incredibly grateful for each and every one of you. And if you have any requests, recommendations, feedback, etc., let me know. I love to hear it. But that's all I have for today. Right now, I am reading the second book in the Once Upon a Broken Heart series, The Ballad of Never After. I finished The Night Circus. Interesting, but that's all I have for you. Thank you so much again. I hope you have a wonderful, lovely day, and I will see you on the next video. Bye.